Welcome to the Pool Nation podcast, where it's all pool talk. And we ain't talking about netting and jetting or splashing and dashing. We're talking about becoming a nation of pool pros. We talk about the latest products, trends, and training in the pool industry. Now let's welcome your host, with over a decade of industry insider experience and still the reigning champion of Marco Polo, Edgar De Jesus, and his co-host, John JJ Flawless, the fastest netter in the West, and Zach the Pool Boy Nicholas.
Welcome, everyone, to the Pool Nation Live podcast. I am your host, Edgar De Jesus, and yes, I am the reigning champion of Marco Polo, along with John and JJ Flawless, the fastest netter in the West, and the famous Zach, the Pool Boy Nicholas. Today, we're jumping into part 3 of our Winter Business Series, and if you've been following along, you know that last week we dove deep into your true cost per pool, not guessing, not the app number, but your real bank account version of your cost per pool. So today we're taking the next step. We're going to uncover the hidden leaks that silently drain your profitability. And then in the next podcast, we're going to talk about what you do next now that you actually know your cost per pool and your hidden leaks. But before we do that, I want to welcome everyone to our live podcast, the podcast where it's all pool talk. And we ain't talking about netting and jetting and splashing and dashing. We're talking about becoming a nation of pool pros. And yes, we will talk about the latest products, trends, and training in the pool industry. But before we get started today, I want to thank our visionary partners for this podcast, the SPPA, Blu-ray Excel, Aquastar Pool Products, Natural Chemistry, Raypack, Heritage Pool Supply, Hayward Pool Products, Poolside Tech, Pool Brain, and NeeDeck. We want to thank them for their continued support. Well, good morning, everyone. I hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving and a nice weekend with their family members. Today, it's just me. Zach and John are out, and so we'll be kind of covering part 3 of this series that I'm excited to be able to jump into, and it's really kind of talking about the hidden leaks, and Zach and I talked about them briefly last week, but today I want to go a little bit deeper into each one of them because they really are silent killers of profitabilities. And, you know, these are the things that if your pool pros are using apps, you know, they don't show up on those apps. You don't feel them day to day because they don't hit you on an invoice, but they absolutely hit your bottom line. And like I said, the reason why they're so dangerous is we kind of call them invisible because you don't see them on a line item on your expenses. You know, they really kind of sneak into that bank account without making any noise. And it's not like a bill, right? It's not like you're buying parts and you see that big expense on there. So they seem like they're little things, but they really kind of add up. They really just chip away at your margin one piece at a time. And because they chip away one piece at a time slowly, you really don't notice them. So what happens with this is, you know, you feel this constant pressure that you're working hard, you're doing things right, you're taking care of your customers, but the money doesn't feel like it matches that effort. And we all get to that stage when we're starting our own businesses. And that feeling, that disconnect is almost always caused by these hidden leaks that we're going to talk about because they hide in the gaps. They hide in the things that we don't log. And I'm going to talk about those and kind of break them down, and you'll be able to kind of relate to that. But it's like they hide in those minutes that we don't think that matter. And when you're in the foundational phase versus when you're in, you know, the scaling and the empire, these things have a huge impact. And they also hide in some of the tasks that we do for the customers that we don't bill for, and we can't bill for those. We can't put that on a line item, and hide in those trips that we don't track. So we're going to talk about those. We're going to do a deep dive into all of those. So today we're going to bring those leaks out into the open, because once you see them, you can control them, which is the important part, is you'll really be able to kind of get them under control. And your business is going to become profitable almost immediately as soon as you start kind of focusing on some of these things. So let's break those down and let's kind of jump in, and let's start with the biggest one. And you guys have heard us talk about it all the time. Me and Zach talk about it all the time. And that is, number one, which is going to be drive time. And really, drive time really destroys more margin than almost anything else. And we talk about this all the time. Maintaining your route tight is going to be a must for your profitability. And you constantly have to look at it to make sure that you cut the drive time. And there's 4 foundational phases that we've talked about on the podcast before. If you're new and you haven't listened to those, you can go back and listen to those podcasts. But there's 4 stages that pool pros go through. And, number 1 is that foundational. When you've got 30, 40, 50 pools, you've got plenty of time to be able to spend a lot of time at your pools, at your customers' houses. It's not that big of a deal. But then you transition into the balancing act. You're by yourself. You're doing 80 to 90 pools. You're doing repairs, billings, customers, all that. And then you move into the scaling phase. And that's really kind of when you bring your first employee. You're still doing part of the pools. You're still doing work, but you also have an employee that's now on your team doing pools. And then there's the empire phase. And the empire phase is now really when you're kind of a lot more out of the day to day, but you're just kind of managing the team. You're managing your business. And so this is really kind of important because, you think when you're in that foundation phase, it's not a huge deal because you have all this time in the world. But as you quickly transition over into that balancing act, it's huge. And it really kind of starts to kill at your time, your profit. And then this is something that you have to have corrected by the time that you move into the scaling because it adds up big time. So, the biggest thing is, that drive time, we always call it that profit killer, because let's say that you're using an app and the app says that your employee took 18 minutes to do the pool. Well, it doesn't really account for the 15 minutes to drive to that pool. And it doesn't account for the 8 minutes to drive to the next stop. It doesn't account for the 5 minutes walking around the side yard, the 3 minutes unloading and loading chemicals, and all that is paid labor. I'm going to tie it in a little bit into that drive time here next. But if you notice, I talked about the 15 minutes driving there and the 8 minutes to the next one. But if your burden labor rate is $28 an hour, and we talked about it on the previous podcast, your burden labor rate could be $22, but then there's 25 to 30% because you got to pay for, insurance, and you got to pay for workers' comp and all that kind of stuff. So let's say that your burden rate is about $28 an hour. 30 minutes of drive time is $14 that's gone. And that's not because you messed up, not because the pool was hard, just because the house is far away. And that's money that's going down the drain. So we always talk about it. We always joke around. The more windshield time, the more drive time, the more your profit is sinking. And so the best way to compare it is this. Look, you can have 2 pools that can pay you the same amount. Let's say it's $165 a month, but one of them takes 5 minutes to get to, and the other one takes 18 minutes to get to. Those pools are not remotely the same. One can be profitable and the other one could be losing money. And if you're not tracking it, you're really never going to know which is which. Here's where it gets a little bit even trickier. Drive time doesn't feel like an expense because it's silent, it's invisible. It's really just kind of part of the day. And you don't feel it the same way, whether you're buying tabs or acid, or you're buying a pump for a repair where you pay for it and you see it on that line item. But your bank account is absolutely going to feel it. And it's just kind of chipping away at it slowly without you being able to see it. So think about this. If you have 5 pools in a row that takes you 5 minutes to get to, your labor cost is going to be tight. It's going to be clean. It's going to be predictable. But if you have 5 pools where the drive times are 12 minutes, 14 minutes, and 18 minutes, you're losing an hour of your tech's day just in the truck. So, that's 1 hour. So just for those 3 pools. So now you're losing that $28 that is just absolutely gone. And that's an hour that they could have spent, whether it's, doing more pools or doing a repair or you guys hear me talk about this all the time, cleaning filters, which is very profitable, or adding any other type of revenue. Instead, it's just windshield time, and you're paying for it whether you want to or not. And this is why route density is such a big deal, and we talk about it all the time. Good, tight routes are really going to be the ones that make you money. And bad routes that are spread apart, that are all over the place, that you're driving to 5 or 6 cities in the same day, those are going to drain those profits. So you're going to have a lot of windshield time, and it's really going to kind of kill that profit. So if your routes are spread out across neighborhoods, different cities, busy roads, your cost per pool is going to skyrocket. And that's what we need to keep under control. One of the things that nobody talks about is once you fix that route density, your business instantly feels easier. And you have to remember your techs are going to feel less stressed, right? Because they're not driving as much. Sorry. You're going to be able to save fuel. That's another part of it where it's going to go straight to the bottom line. You're going to use less time. You're going to reduce overtime, and your profitability is going to jump without changing a single pool on your list. You're still doing all those pools, but what you're doing is you're focusing on that drive time. You're focusing on that pool density, and you're trying to keep it as tight as possible. And drive time is one of those most impactful things that you can fix, but you can only fix it if you're measuring it. And nowadays, we have a lot of tools out there that are available. When I started doing pools, I'm going to start to date myself here, right? You didn't have Google Maps. You didn't have any of that where you could kind of plug in your pools and you could figure out how much drive time. You didn't have apps like Pool Brain that tell you the drive time from pool to pool. And really, that's one of the best ways to do it, is to grab that route and kind of put it into an application like that, figure out what that drive time is, and try to constantly reduce it. And I know it's not fun to sit there and have to look at your routes, twice a year to make sure that you're keeping that route density intact. But it's something that you have to do to make sure that you're squeezing every profit out of each one of your routes. And I know that customers don't like it when you change employees to clean their pools and stuff like that. But if you explain to those customers, hey, once or twice a year, we're reevaluating our routes, we're making sure that we stay consistent, that we're able to provide you a better job by allowing that member to spend more time at your pool if he has to, they're going to be happy with that. They're going to understand that, and they're going to be okay with that. So let's talk about the next one. And this is another big one that happens to most of the pool pros out there. And that is what we call the chemical creep. And the chemical creep is something that, just like the drive time, it happens slowly. And we all know that it hits us the hardest during the summertime. And that's where you think you're using $6 or $8 in chems, whatever it is, whatever that number is. But when you look at the bank account, you realize that you spent $2,400 in chemicals last month, and you stocked up on tabs. You grab liquid chlorine, the acid, the conditioner, the clarifier. If your employees are driving to pick it up, right, they just pick up an extra bucket, or they pick up an extra case of this and chemicals of that. And you don't realize it, but it starts to creep up. And then when you divide that by all of your stops, you start to figure out, man, you're $12, $14, $16 per visit. That's per visit, not per month, per visit. And if you're pricing based on winter chemical use, you're always going to be upside down by June. And we talk about this all the time. And that is that, you really need to track these numbers all year round. And you have to track them during the summertime, which is your busiest time of the year. And it's very difficult to kind of go, man, I just worked 12 days and now I got to go track these numbers. Just forget about that. But in the summertime, it's when it's the most crucial, because it's going to impact you the most during that June, July, August, September, those hard months for the summer that we're burning through chemicals. And here's why this one is so dangerous is it really rarely happens in one big shot. It's not like all of a sudden you go and you spend $2,500 more in a single day. It's the little things. It's the gallon here, the couple extra tabs there, or the extra bag of salt that wasn't billed, or the phosphate remover. It really is going to start to chip away at that margin. And you don't notice it when you're buying it. You don't notice it when you're dosing the pool, but your bank account is going to notice it. And that's the biggest trap that pool pros fall into. The other thing that we see, and hey, I was guilty of this at the beginning. I was the only one. So I was buying things. So I had a really good pulse on what it was that I was buying. But the moment that you start to bring employees, and if they're able to go to the pool store and pick up things, you no longer have eyes on those. And you kind of think that you do, but in reality, you don't. And I've shared this story a bunch of times, but I had employees where they went and during wintertime and they bought $1,000 worth of chemicals because they loaded up and they were pouring extra chemicals into the pools that didn't need to be added. But I wasn't seeing it because it's not like he went and he swiped, boom, and charged $1,000. It was, he went and he bought this, and then he went back and he bought that, and then he went back and he bought this, and then he was adding those extra things. And it's exactly what we talk about is it's a silent killer because you're not seeing it every day. If I didn't track chemicals used per employee, 4 weeks would have gone by and I would have spent $4,000 or $5,000 and that would have really hit me. But luckily I looked at everything on a weekly basis and I was able to catch it and talk to him and go, "Hey man, what's going on?" And he's like, "Well, I just was going to pour half a gallon. So I poured a whole gallon because I figured a little bit more is better." So the worst thing that you could do is calculate your chemical costs based on the easy month. You can't just kind of go in the wintertime and calculate it then and say, "I'm going to use this for the rest of the year." In January, we all know that the water's very cold. You don't need as much chems. Adjustments need less chemicals. And in January, you might be at $3 per stop. In February, you might be $4, but in July, you might be at 12, 14 easily with all the chems, that you're adding to the pool. So if you're basing that pricing on those winter months, you're setting yourself up to bleed profit and margin all summer long. So it's really important that during the summertime, you're kind of able to figure out your chemical costs per pool. Again, the biggest reason, and I'm going to repeat this, is you need to think about it like this. Summer is when pools are going to need the most care. It's hot, the sun's beating down, the UV is high, the bather load is high, all the kids are home from school, all the neighborhood kids are coming over, they're getting a lot more dirt, a lot more organics into the pool. And that's when your chemical usage is just going to skyrocket. So the time of the year when you're working the hardest is also when your chemical cost is spiking the most. And nobody wants to be in that situation where you feel like, man, when I work the hardest is when I make less money. No, you have to calculate that so that profitability is in there. And if you didn't factor that increase into that cost per pool that we're talking about, you're funding that difference out of your own pocket. You're paying for that. It's coming out of your pocket, not the business. So it's really important that you focus on that calculation during the summertime. A lot of things that most people don't consider is, and I'm going to say it, you can't charge winter prices for summer workload. If the average chemical cost around the year is 7 or 8 per stop, you cannot build your pricing off of, that $4 in the wintertime, because otherwise you're going to be profitable in January, which is great, but you're going to be drowning in July and you're not going to be making any profit. So that's why we talk and we say that chemical creep is real. And remember this, it destroys your summer profit. Unless you calculate that correctly, it's going to sneak up on you every single year. When we work with the people on the Matrix and the Matrix members, this is one of the number one things that we do is they have to track all of those expenses. They have to track all of those numbers so that they have a clear picture every single month, so that they get a clear picture and a clear understanding of where it is that they are at. Okay, now let's talk about number 3. And this is another one that is a big one. And it's something that you kind of have to take into account when you're doing your rates and you're figuring out your rates. And it's what we call the non-billable labor. And what I mean by non-billable is things that you do, but you can't put as a line item on an invoice. Let's jump into it and talk about some of those and what they are. So an example, if we can start talking about callbacks, especially when you're in that phase where you are in the scaling or in the empire and you have employees and you need to send them back. It will kill your profits. If you have to do extra brushing because the chemistry was not right and now it took you longer, or if you had gate issues because you had to wait because a customer doesn't want to give you a key and now you get there and you have to text them for them to come and open the gate and you have to wait, or if they have dogs and the dogs are aggressive and you have to wait for them to come out and put the dogs away. And then you know what happens from there, right? The customer conversations start, and we always joke around with it, right? We're chemists, we're engineers, we're plumbers, and we're also, therapists and psychologists, because customers kind of come and tell us, whether it's their personal problems to their vacation to anything that they want to do, and that starts to take time. Or they come to you and they go, hey, while you're here, can you look at this? If you are in that scaling or in that empire and you have your pool techs that just do service and you have others that do repairs, but now they're coming and they're kind of going, hey, while you're here, can you look at this? It adds up. Walking around the house a second time, taking pictures and sending updates. So let's say that, they come to you and they say, hey, while you're here, can you take a look at this? The spa is clear, but the pool is cloudy. And what it was is they changed the valves and they didn't put them back. And now you're having to go back there and correct them and help him and explain that to him. And now you take pictures and you got to send updates, and you go back into the truck and you sit down. And now what you want to do is make sure that, log everything that happens so that you have a record of it. And whether it's typing to the office or in your software, all those things, all that time starts to add up. And it's not like you can go to an invoice and go extra brushing X amount. Well, I had to wait for the gate issue, so that was an extra 7 minutes. So 7 minutes, $10. You can't do that. Those are those non-billable things that start to add up, but you have to account for them. And, none of that shows up on the apps. If you're using apps, all it's tracking is time to clean that pool. It's not tracking any of those times, but you have to pay for every single minute of it. And one callback on a pool where you think that you're making a lot of money and you're only making, $5 or $7 in profit, that just wiped out the entire month of profit for that account. Now you are upside down in that account for the rest of the month. And here's the part that nobody talks about. Non-billable labor is the silent profit thief in this industry because we can't charge for those things. So if you have companies, if you have employees, you really kind of need to streamline that process as much as you can. And you need to kind of train your employees on that, because just like the other ones, it's never just one big, huge event. It's not something obvious. Like if you go to Heritage to buy something and you did a repair and it was $300 that you forgot to charge for a part, and you see it there and it's like, it's right there in your face. It's a whole bunch of these tiny little things, none of which feels like it's huge in the moment, but they're going to stack up fast. And again, if you look at it and you're a pool pro that have been through the journey, you see it when you had 30, 40, 50 pools. That wasn't a big deal. Like you could spend as much time talking to the customer and doing it. John jokes around, talks about his first pool that he got, and he would spend 6-8 hours at that pool kind of working on it and all that kind of stuff. It's not a big deal back then. But when you have employees, this is something that you can't allow, you have to train, you have to focus on, you have to figure out, okay, how much is this on average, this non-billable labor, and how do you add that into your cost per pool so that you make sure that you're covering that cost? So, let me give you some real world examples here. So let's say that you spend, like I said earlier, 6 minutes for them to open the gate because they don't want to give you a key. You spend 3 minutes waiting for them to put the dogs away. You spend 7 minutes talking to the customer about the vacation plans because we know exactly how that goes. You spend 5 minutes troubleshooting that spa spillover that I was just talking to that just came up. You respond to the text message later explaining to them why the pool was clouded, and you kind of log to make sure that you protect and that everybody in the office knows what happens. Individually, not that big of a deal. But if you stack that across a full route, you can easily lose 1 to 2 hours a day in non-billable time. And if I go back and I talk about that labor burden of $28 an hour, that's 28 to 56 hours a day just evaporating based on how many employees you have. It's 140 to 280 bucks a week. That's 560 to over 1,000 a month. That's just absolutely gone. That's $12,000 a year that's going to be gone just straight out of your profit. And it's all from the little things. The psychological trap is pool pros, we see ourselves as helpers. We see ourselves as solvers, as people who want to deliver great service. We always want to deliver that great service. And that's good. And our industry is really built on relationships. We talk about that all the time. It's a relationship-based industry. But what happens is you start giving away time without realizing that you're giving away money. And when you have a lot of employees and stuff like that, it will absolutely kill you. So as you're in those early phases, you have to notice all those things, right? You walk around the yard twice. You go out there, you check the equipment pad just to be safe. You spend 15 minutes brushing algae that shouldn't have been there because the customer flipped those valves and put only spa, so the pool wasn't moving. So the pool got green. So now you have to brush an extra 15 minutes. And you spend the 10 minutes texting back and forth with the customer that wants to understand why that happened. None of that shows up on, like we talk about, none of that shows up on the app. Your app has no idea. It only sees pool completed, 18 minutes on site. Meanwhile, you lost 25 to 40 minutes on your route on things that you never get paid for. So this is why we call this and talk about this being one of those silent killers. And you need to mathematically figure that out into your quote. Here's really the most important thing to understand is non-billable labor is the number one reason great pool pros burn out. I want you to hear that again. Non-billable labor is the number one reason great pool pros burn out, is because instead of being able to do more pools and be more profitable, you're doing more work, but you're not seeing the rewards of it. It's really not the cleaning. It's not the chemistry. It's not the weather. It's the constant drip of time and those things that you never charge for. And it's going to slowly erode at your margin, and it's going to steal your bandwidth. And the worst part is you really don't notice it until you're exhausted and your bank account doesn't reflect how hard you're working. We talk about it all the time. I was like, man, I went to working 6 days. I went to working 7 days, and I feel like I'm burning out because even though I'm working those extra days, I don't feel my bank account increasing because of all that extra work that I'm doing. That's why we talk about this. That's why this is important and awareness matters on this, because identifying and controlling non-billable labor is one of the biggest steps towards profitability and, more importantly, towards sanity. You want to prevent that burnout. So if you have employees, you have to train them on how to do the pool and what order and how efficient they can be doing that pool. I talk about it all the time. I used to have my team members do the pools in the exact same steps because I did them in the same exact steps to make sure that I was taking advantage of the time and being able to do everything a lot more efficiently and be able to cut that time. Let's do this. Let's take a quick word from our sponsors. When we come back, we are going to jump into the next one.
Pool pros have specific needs when it comes to general liability insurance. The SPPA program has you covered. With 3 tailored and customizable general liability options, SPPA makes it easy for pool pros to feel secure. Find out more and get covered at thesppa.com. U.S. Motors Neptune Variable Speed Motor provides a versatile replacement solution for all your pool pump motor needs. This motor can communicate with pool control systems, provide low voltage options to work with time clocks, and can be installed as a standalone pump motor. The Neptune motor can be easily installed on existing pumps, upgrading them to a variable speed pump without the need for replumbing. Enjoy energy savings and quiet operation by installing a Neptune Variable Speed Motor today. For more information and to find your local distributor, visit usmotors.com/pool. Blu-ray XL is the power of minerals working for you. Reduce your overall chemical costs and labor up to 50% guaranteed. Whether you have 20 accounts or 20,000, Blu-ray XL's direct pricing and free shipping to the pool trade have you covered. Improving pool professionals' profit and work-life balance is what they do. Blu-ray XL, the real mineral purifier. Visit them at BluRayXL.com.
Blu-ray all day.
Aquastar's new pipeline cartridge filters, available in 2 sizes, deliver top-notch hydraulic efficiency along with best-in-class filtration performance, approaching that of DE filters. Uniquely designed, open pleat spacing means 100% of the media square footage is usable. And these claims are backed by NSF test results. Designed with the pro's time and comfort in mind, the patented double locking system improves safety and ease of access, making filter cleaners faster than ever before. Available now. Ask your supplier for pipeline filters today.
Natural Chemistry, a leader in specialty water care solutions for over 30 years, is proud to provide products that make pool service easier than ever before. Its unique enzyme formulations in Pro Series Pro Blend improve efficiency of your pool program while reducing frequency of filter cleaning and scum lines. Natural Chemistry is also well known for its wide variety of phosphate removal solutions that include a non-clouding formula in Phos-Free and extremely high-range removal with Pro Series Phos Remove or Phos Free Max. Save time, save money, save work with Pro Series products. Stop sacrificing durability or efficiency with the help of Raypak's new Avia HD models that utilize NITEC, their exclusive industry-first technology. NITEC heat exchanger technology is Raypak's latest solution to superior strength and maximum efficiency when it comes to residential pool heating. With 900% more nickel compared to copper nickel in critical surfaces, NITEC creates an ideal surface to protect against scale formation and erosion without compromising on Avia's 84% thermal efficiency. Learn more at raypak.com/NITEC. The next evolution in lighting is here. Universal Color Logic 2.0 from Hayward. The latest in pool and spa lighting was designed with you in mind, making installation a breeze. Upgrades include a detachable cord and first-of-a-kind adjustable lower catch to overcome variations in plaster thickness. As always, Universal Color Logic lights retrofit into virtually any in-ground pool or spa while delivering industry-leading, vibrant color. Visit Hayward.com to discover more.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Pool Nation Live podcast. We continue our conversation. You know, I was looking on break, I was looking at some notes that Zach had sent me, and I'm going to have him talk about this on the next podcast. I'll have him do a little deep dive before we get into part number 4. But, you know, he calls his, you know, we were talking about the non-billable. He calls his the micro task. And, you know, we always talk about businesses pool businesses have micro businesses within those businesses, and he calls them micro tasks that you never charge for. And I'm going to let him talk about those. They're kind of similar to those non-billable, but he has a different way to kind of put it with regards to doing those micro tasks that I think is really relatable, especially for those of you that have employees and look at them as, those micro tasks, and how he teaches his employees on those micro tasks and how those, can really add up. So I'll have him talk about those in the next podcast, kind of give his perspective on that one. So let's go to number 4. And number 4 is a big one that we talk about all the time. John calls it the low-hanging fruit with regards to your pool route, but that is really that bad route design. And it kind of goes in hand with the drive time, but a bad route design is something that can really kind of kill you. And you can have 100 pools and still be losing money, because if the route is sloppy and you're zigzagging across neighborhoods, if you're putting them in where you're battling traffic a certain time. So if you have them doing certain pools next to schools at 3:00 in the afternoon when all the kids are coming out of school and they get caught in traffic, it can be a nightmare. Or if you're duplicating loops. So we've had this, I think a lot of pool pros at the beginning go through this. They're setting up their route and they kind of come and do one pool, they leave, and then all of a sudden they're kind of come back in the same vicinity or close to that pool doing it again, rather than kind of shifting that to do that pool. And your cost per pool skyrockets. So fixing your route density is going to be one of the fastest and most effective profitability fixes in your entire business. Here's the one thing about route design. Most pool pros don't realize how much it impacts the bottom line, because when you're out there grinding every day, you're just trying to get through the list. You're trying to get through your 12, 14, 16, 18 pools, however many you do. And you're thinking, okay, this pool is the next and this one's on the way. And you don't really stop to look at the big picture and how efficiency is in the entire route. And again, guilty as charged. I did it at the beginning. But you can have the same number of pools, the same pricing, and the same quality of customers. But if the route makes money and the other one loses money purely based on how it's laid out, it could kill you, right? And I just go back to remember my early days of doing pools and how I just kind of didn't focus on it. And I just kind of took it and I threw it into Thursday because it was in that area. But then I didn't notice that Wednesday I drove a lot closer through it. So let me give you an example. If your pools are 5 minutes apart, you're flowing, you're moving, you're a lot more efficient. You're kind of into this rhythm that you get into, whether it's you or your employee. Your time on task is high. Your drive time is low. There's low windshield time. Your cost per stop stays tight. But if your pools are 14 minutes apart across those major intersections, across the side of town, in difficult neighborhoods for parking, that's another one that is huge. Is you have some that are very difficult to get parking in. You got to loop around in those areas that you got to keep looping back. Or, in certain states, in California, it was a big thing. You had to do pools on certain dates, but then the sweepers came by. If you were parked in front of the house, you would get a ticket if you didn't move it. And that takes time, and you got to drop and check and keep an eye on it. So that's where all the profitability is going to collapse, because the most expensive part about a pool route is not just the chemicals. It's not the equipment, or not even the supplies, the pole or the net. It's labor. It's paid time. It's paid minutes. It's paid miles. And a bad route turns paid minutes into wasted minutes really fast, and it really adds up. And so for us, that was always huge. And, we did a lot of vacation rentals, and gosh, our vacation rental routes were just so much more efficient because it was so tight. It was so close. We'd be able to park our truck and do 5 or 6 pools without even having to move the truck. And you're kind of in this rhythm, and you're going, and you're able to do a lot more, a lot faster. And you don't have that windshield time. You don't have that wasted labor. So Think about this. If you have a route with 15 pools and you lose just 8 minutes between each stop because the route is not tight, that's 120 minutes. That's 2 full hours that are gone every single day. Now, take that, multiply that by 5 days a week, and that's 10 hours per week. 10 hours per week of non-revenue labor. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to use the same number that I talk about, that burden labor rate of $28 an hour. That's $280 every week, $1,100 a month, $13,200 a year, purely from route inefficiency. What business owner would not want to keep an extra $13,200 in just straight profit because you're able to tighten that up? So a bad route design just doesn't cost you time, it costs you real money. And it's one of those that creeps up. You don't see it on a statement, so it doesn't impact you. When you're small and you've got 20 or 30 pools, you can kind of muscle through it. You can outrun the inefficiency. But once you get to 60, 80, 100 pools, you can't outrun it anymore. It catches up to you and it crushes your margin and you're spending a lot more time. And now you get into the 6 or 7 days and you start to get into that burnout that we all face when we're in that balancing act. Here's the good news. Fixing your route is one of the fastest ways to increase profitability without increasing prices. I want you to hear that again. Fixing your route is one of the fastest ways to increase profitability without increasing prices. And you can literally rearrange your route, cluster those pools, reassign days if you have to. I know that it's not fun if you have employees and customers are used to certain employees, but tighten up the neighborhoods. Cut all those outliners out, reduce backtracking. You know, when it took me years to kind of realize, hey, I used to drive 40 minutes to go do just these 2 pools up further that I didn't charge a lot more for, but I just thought, hey, it's revenue that I'm going to be losing. But once I did the math and I'm like, this is the drive time to just go these 2 pools and then the drive time back, it's costing me more to just do those pools. It's better to get rid of those 2 pools and be a lot more profitable. And if you do that, you're instantly going to, boost your profit by anywhere from 10 to 25%. And think about it. You're not increasing the prices to your customers. You're not adding new pools. There's no new expenses. It's just smarter routing. It's just taking your routes and making them that much more efficient. And once you do this, the days are going to feel easier. Your techs, if you have techs, man, how much pressure that's going to take off of them. They're going to feel less rushed to be able to have to get through that and flip and go. Your gas bill is going to go down. Your callbacks drop because you're regaining that time, and your cost per pool is going to become a lot more predictable instead of that chaotic. So that bad route design is one of the biggest leaks in the industry, and it's one of the easiest things to fix once you actually look at it. So from the beginning, if you are a small pool pro that's new, really put this into play from your early stages. Zach talks about it all the time. They do all of their pools within an 8 square mile radius. Keep that tight. Keep looking at that route. Keep taking away that windshield time and make sure that route is really as tight as possible to create that profitability, to really make sure that you are making sure that those routes are as profitable as possible. Okay, so now let's talk about the last one for today. And this is going to be a little bit if you start going, not so much for the smaller pool pros, the foundation, this kind of starts to get into the balancing act, then you have to have this corrected by the time that you kind of get into that scaling phase. And Zach talked about this a little bit, is office. I'm going to tie it in. I'm going to do office and equipment leaks, especially if you have equipment, you have employees, you've got hammerheads, you've got, all these extra tools. But this is one of those that has hidden leaks all over it and nobody pays attention to. And honestly, it can sometimes hit harder than all the others combined, because while drive time and chemical creep and micro tasks eat your time day by day, the next one hits you big and unexpected chunks. And these are surprises. They come out of nowhere. And the moment where you look at your bank account, you think, man, where did that go? These costs are things that aren't going to show up every week, but when they do show up, they're going to punch you right in the gut and you're going to feel it. And I think that's why we need to talk about them a little bit. So, let's talk about the dual. We'll talk about the office, the equipment, the trucks, and all that kind of stuff. But the things that you can't forget about is when you have trucks and you now have a fleet, you got to take care of tires. You got to take care of brakes. You got to do oil. We joke around, me, Zach, and John, all the time because we print stuff all the time. So we just went to the PSP Expo and we did, booklets for handouts for all the business classes. And so there was over 200 and something booklets of over 25 pages each, but printer ink. And we can kind of get into a side conversation about the racket, right? They'll give you the printer for free. But then when you have to buy that ink, it's like, holy crap. It's like, $200 in freaking ink and you only get a certain amount of prints per cartridge. And so if you are doing invoices, have a big staff that tracks repairs and are printing and doing all those things, and you're training your members and all that adds up quickly. Software subscriptions, we're by nature have a bad habit of just sign up for this and it's only $10 here and that one's 20 and that one's 30 and that one, but they all of a sudden you've got 10 of them and they're starting to add up very quickly. Repairs, and the repairs could be for anything. The repairs could be for trucks or equipment in the office. If you do have an office and the AC unit goes out and you're responsible for it, not the landlord, all those things. One of the things that I complain about all the time is a dying laptops. Laptops nowadays are $1,500, $2,000 for a decent laptop, and they last you 3 years and then boom, they're gone. If you offer phones for your employees to be able to track apps and all that kind of stuff, they all need to be replaced every couple of years. Or if it happens like mine, I had more than one that bounced off the deck and straight into the pool. These are things that they don't hit you weekly, but when they hit hard and you don't have those built into your costs, they come straight out of your margin. And these are expenses that sneak up on you because they're not tied into a specific pool. They're not tied into today's route. They don't show up little by little. They show up all at once. And as usual, it's always at the worst possible time. One of the things that I'll share with you, and it used to drive me crazy, but nothing reminds you how important this category is like the moment that your tech calls you from the side of the road because the truck died. It just won't start, right? Like you're knee deep and doing repairs and all that. And all of a sudden you get a call and it's like, hey, truck won't start. I'm at, Mrs. Smith house. Now you're not just paying for the $700 repair and getting it towed and getting all that, but now you're paying for the lost productivity, the rerouting, the delays, now overflowing of pools because the tech didn't finish the route. Sometimes you have to go rent a truck. Like there's plenty of times that I had to go rent a U-Haul truck, right? Just to be able to kind of keep moving because I didn't have that extra truck. But you got to do it just to keep the day moving. And then, you have to remember it stresses out the employees too, because now they have to take on the workload and go faster and try to get things done quicker. And the customers are calling, how come Edgar didn't show up today? And it's not just the trucks. Your printer is never going to die on a slow day. It's always going to die on the day that you're behind and you're printing invoices, and that's when it decides not to work. Same thing with the laptop, right? It never gets out in February. It's always going to die right in the middle of summer when you're the busiest, you have the least amount of time, and you need to jump on your laptop to do some work, and that's boom, when it dies. And the phone never cracks while you're sitting inside in the office and you dropped it. Nope, cracks. Like I remember being at a pool, busting out my phone, seeing it bounce right, like in slow motion, off of the edge and into the pool when I was trying to take a picture. When you look at your bank statement, you're like, man, where am I supposed to pull all this money from? It's all happening at the same time. And you know how it is. It all happens at the worst time. It's never on that slow time. So, these aren't optional expenses. It's the cost of running a real business. And to run a real business nowadays, you need a phone. You need a cell phone. You need to be accessible all the time. It's not like the old days. And man, I remember in the old days when my neighbor was doing pools and there wasn't cell phones like today, or I'm going to date myself, but he used to have a phone at home and his wife used to answer the phone, and he would go and he would call a couple times a day just to verify if there was anything that he needed to do. And that was okay back then. But nowadays, people want to reach you instantly. So you need a phone. You need a cell phone. You have to have a laptop or a computer. You need to have software. You need to have the trucks. You need that printer ink, the billing system, the routing tools, the accounting, the cloud storage. Let's not even get into the cloud storage, but the whole back end infrastructure that keeps the business organized. And when you're smaller, a lot of the cloud storage and the accounting and the stuff are at a smaller scale. But as you continue to grow, those things have to be able to evolve with your business, and they have to get better. And a lot of times they cost more money, and you have to get better systems in place. And the biggest thing is all of these things that we're talking about have a lifespan. Nothing is going to last forever. And I'll make fun of iPhones right now, right? Because I'm always making fun of iPhones. But hey, year 2, year 3, you know what Apple's doing, right? They're slowing down your phone. So your phone is going to last 1 to 3 years. Laptops are going to last anywhere from 3 to 5. For me, they last 3 years, and every 3 years, I think I was able to squeeze like 3.5 out of my last one. And then it was just, it's done. It's older, it's slow, and then it starts to give you the blue screen of death, and you don't have a choice. Printers will last, a week if we're lucky. No, I'm being funny because, don't have luck with printers, but I think they make them really cheap so that they're almost disposable, right? But printers don't last a long time if they're getting heavy use. Tires are going to last 30 to 50,000 miles, depending on are you rotating them on every 3,000 miles? Did you buy the tires that are rated for 50,000 miles? Brakes are going to last 12 to 18 months, depending on the route. Stop, go, stop at this house, go here. Software is going to renew monthly. Insurance renews yearly and increases every year. Let's not even go there. What I'm trying to get at is if you're not building these replacement cycles into your cost per pool, the moment that something breaks, you feel it. And that's why you have to take these things into account, and your business has to be profitable, and your business has to have money in that account sitting there to be able to deal with all these things. If you can have a business that does $1 million a year, $2 million a year, but if it's not profitable and the business is not able to have money in that bank account to pay for these things, you haven't accounted it for in your cost per pool, in your profitability, and your margins. The bigger you grow, the more these expenses grow. It's very different having 10 trucks and having 3 of them break down than just you and one employee, and the employee's truck broke down and you got a U-Haul, and that's fine. But again, if you're not building these replacement cycles into your cost per pool and something breaks, you are going to feel it. And here's the worst part. When you don't plan for the expenses, they become emergencies, and emergencies always cost more. But when you build them into your pricing, you're turning that unpredictable expense into predictable. And they're going to be budgeted costs. They're going to be costs that you have in that budget, sitting in that account, waiting for them to happen for you to be able to pay for them. And that's the difference between staying calm when your trucks need brakes or having that minor panic attack because you didn't expect it. This category of the office and the equipment is really kind of the backbone of your business. It's the infrastructure that it's going to allow you to do your job. And man, it is not glamorous. It might not be the fun part, but if you ignore it, it has the power to destroy your margin faster than anything else that we've talked about, especially as you start to grow and you get bigger and you have more employees and just everything multiplies itself, right? You get that bigger multiplier. So remember, and I always talk about this, if it comes out of your business account, it belongs in your cost per pool. And that's why this is so important for you to figure out is what is your true cost per pool so that you can take these things into account, look at these hidden links and kind of go, hey, am I accounting for these things? So if I quoted $165 and I'm kind of breaking even and everybody's getting paid and everything's grand and hey, at least everything's getting paid. Well, are you taking into account for these other things that are going to happen? Because if you're breaking even and everybody got paid, what happens when the truck breaks down? What happens when the laptop crashes? What happens when, need to put brakes on a truck? That money has to come from somewhere. So at that point, you have to sit, look at these things and account for them, account for all these hidden leaks so that you can add them to the cost per pool so that your business can be profitable and you do not stress out and you do not burn out. All right, everybody, let's do this. Let's take our final words from our sponsors. And guess what? Since I'm the only one, what I'm going to do when I come back is I'm just going to kind of throw the final thoughts back to myself. So we'll be right back.
Pool pros have specific needs when it comes to general liability insurance. The SPPA program has you covered. With 3 tailored and customizable general liability options, SPPA makes it easy for pool pros to feel secure. Find out more and get covered at thesppa.com. U.S. Motors Neptune Variable Speed Motor provides a versatile replacement solution for all your pool pump motor needs. This motor can communicate with pool control systems, provide low voltage options to work with time clocks, and can be installed as a standalone pump motor. The Neptune motor can be easily installed on existing pumps, upgrading them to a variable speed pump without the need for replumbing. Enjoy energy savings and quiet operation by installing a Neptune Variable Speed Motor today. For more information and to find your local distributor, visit usmotors.com/pool. Blu-ray XL is the power of minerals working for you. Reduce your overall chemical costs and labor up to 50% guaranteed. Whether you have 20 accounts or 20,000, Blu-ray XL's direct pricing and free shipping to the pool trade have you covered. Improving pool professionals' profit and work-life balance is what they do. Blu-ray XL, the real mineral purifier. Visit them at BluRayXL.com.
Blu-ray all day.
Aquastar's new pipeline cartridge filters, available in 2 sizes, deliver top-notch hydraulic efficiency along with best-in-class filtration performance, approaching that of DE filters. Uniquely designed, open pleat spacing means 100% of the media square footage is usable. And these claims are backed by NSF test results. Designed with the pro's time and comfort in mind, the patented double-locking system improves safety and ease of access, making filter cleaners faster than ever before. Available now. Ask your supplier for pipeline filters today.
Natural Chemistry, a leader in specialty water care solutions for over 30 years, is proud to provide products that make pool service easier than ever before. Its unique enzyme formulations in Pro Series Pro Blend improve efficiency of your pool program while reducing frequency of filter cleaning and scum lines. Natural Chemistry is also well known for its wide variety of phosphate removal solutions that include a non-clouding formula in Phos-Free and extremely high-range removal with Pro Series Phos Remove or Phos-Free Max. Save time, save money, save work with Pro Series products. Stop sacrificing durability or efficiency with the help of Raypak's new Avia HD models that utilize NITEC, their exclusive industry-first technology. NITEC heat exchanger technology is Raypak's latest solution to superior strength and maximum efficiency when it comes to residential pool heating. With 900% more nickel compared to copper nickel in critical surfaces, NITEC creates an ideal surface to protect against scale formation and erosion without compromising on Avia's 84% thermal efficiency. Learn more at raypak.com/NITEC. The next evolution in lighting is here. Universal Color Logic 2.0 from Hayward. The latest in pool and spa lighting was designed with you in mind, making installation a breeze. Upgrades include a detachable cord and first-of-a-kind adjustable lower catch to overcome variations in plaster thickness. As always, Universal Color Logic lights retrofit into virtually any in-ground pool or spa while delivering industry-leading, vibrant color. Visit Hayward.com to discover more.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Pool Nation Live podcast. I am running solo. Once again, I hope everybody had a great time over Thanksgiving with their families and enjoyed that. We now get ready to go into Christmas, and it's also a time for the pool pros to be able to breathe a little bit, kind of focus on the business. So I am solo here, so I'm going to throw my final thoughts to myself here. And these are some of the things that you learn along the journey, and to the pool pros that are out there that are kind of going through some of these growing pains. One thing that you need to understand is this is very common, man. It happened to me. It happened to John. It happened to Zach. It happened to a lot of the pool pros that we talk to, because you kind of have to learn through experience, and you have to face some of these things in order to have to go back and change things and make your business, more profitable and eliminate a lot of these things. It's just part of the journey. It's part of the being a business owner. And it's okay. For us, we always talk about it, network, because you get into some of these problems, and a lot of times you can just kind of pick up that phone and make that phone call and really have that person from your network say, look, this is what I went through in my journey, and this is how I fixed it. And a lot of times you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just kind of, it's like they joke around when you play Monopoly, right? You skip and you go back home and you collect $200, right? You don't have to stop and try to figure it out along the way. They're going to get you that pass that's going to get you around the board a lot quicker. So make sure that when you're going to these events, and I don't care whether it's a show, a boot camp, a tabletop, whatever it is, network, always leave with at least one or two people's phone numbers so that you can kind of call them as you need their help along the journey. Our industry is a great industry. It's an amazing industry. I talk about it all the time, and I'll say it till the day of my death. And this is one of the only industries where you will have a competitor that will take off their shirt and give it to you in order to be able to help you. This doesn't happen in other industries. And other pool pros out there that have become part of your network want to see you succeed. And so they will help you, and they will give you that support. So with the podcast today, it's really kind of a lot of those hidden links that you learn along the way later on as you start to grow your business. But hey, attack them one at a time, and you're going to be able to see how much more profitable it makes your business. If you have skipped and you're jumping into this podcast, I really recommend that you go back and listen to, that part one. We started talking about the pool pro pricing for 2025, 2026. Then the next podcast, we talked about figuring out your profit per pool, your cost per pool, which is really important. Today we talked about the hidden links that will hurt your profitability and those 4 things. And in the next podcast, we're going to talk about margins. We're going to talk a little bit about the good, better, best pricing. And more importantly, we're going to talk about how to build your new rate for 2026. And, the question will be, do you need to rate? Do you need to increase prices? Or can you look at some of these hidden leaks and you're able to fix some of that profitability where maybe you don't have to raise your rates? I'm not saying don't raise your rates, because you should look at it every year. Everything is going up every year. The cost of everything is going up. So you have to make sure that you're not the one eating that cost. But is the hidden links going to be part of your strategy for 2026? So anyways, hope that you guys and girls enjoyed this podcast, and we will catch everybody next Wednesday when me and John go live on Instagram. We'll catch you guys there. Have a good one. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Pool Nation podcast, a member of the Pool Nation family. You can listen to us live every Friday here at 9 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Central, and 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. You can find us at Pool Nation or poolnationpodcast.com, on Facebook, or on Instagram at pool.nation. And to find more info about Pool Invoice, the billing software built specifically for the pool industry, go to poolinvoice.com. Before you go, this is what the pool industry has been waiting for. PoolmanUniversity.com. It's the first platform dedicated to learning the swimming pool service and repair industry. A pool service community where you can connect and find videos on business, service, water chemistry, and repairs. See you there at PoolmanUniversity.com.